I'm an artist. You're an artist. We are all artists. So here I have some cardstock. It's black. It's a 12 by 12 inch. I have a second one just in case. Here I have a ruler, a pencil, and a gold Sharpie. I'm gonna make squares that are 3 by 3. I just happen to have some of my son's Legos that I've put together, which are 3 inches by 3 inches. That will be perfect. That is the quick way. Here I have a light that I'm gonna put inside. I'm also gonna use a pair of scissors and an X-Acto knife, as well as a glue stick. So let's get started. Let's trace or make squares that are 3 inches by 3 inches. We're gonna make 12 of these. Now again, my paper is 12 by 12 inches, yours might slightly differ, but on mine I'm going to cut off the slack. And we'll be making the designs on what will be the shape of a cross basically, with the remaining squares to be used for slack. You'll see what I mean. So now let's start with those designs. On this first one that's at the top, let's make a circle. We'll first use a pencil and then we can trace it with the gold Sharpie marker. So after we trace it with the Sharpie marker, or the permanent marker I should say, let's make another cross-like symbol inside here. And then let's fill in the remaining little spaces. And while we do that, I wanna implore you to subscribe to our channel. If you're not yet subscribed, do it now so you can stay up to date and receive notifications about our latest horror art videos. So now that we made this little shape, I closed it in a little bit more, made it a little bit more narrow, and then I fill in this middle part, as well as make lines on each of these bars. After that, I want you to make all the little designs that I make here. They are simply these shapes that extend not quite from the circle, a little bit after that circle. There's a little bit of space, as you can see, between the circle and these petals, these shapes that extend. Not all the way to the end either. As you can see, there's a little bit of space at the ends too. It doesn't go all the way to the end of the square. So after we do all of these across, let's fill them in randomly, leaving tiny little spaces or marks in between. So you see I'm coloring it in, filling it in, but leaving little markings that show, leaving little empty black spaces throughout. So now let's continue with the one right below it. So let's make a square within that square, so that there should be just a tiny bit of space left between what we're drawing right now and the square that's already there. Once we draw it, then we can trace it with our gold marker. So the gold marker is metallic. It's going to give the whole Lament configuration a metallic look that light reflects very nicely on. So after we trace it, let's make these partial circles on corners and in between those corners as well. Then we fill them in. Now we're going to fill them in, but again, we're going to leave little spaces in between. And we also make a circle in the middle. Not quite as big. It's not nearly as big, I should say, as the one that we made for the first one. But this one is smaller, but it's solid. Then we make these lines that extend from that circle to each of those partial circles. Now, once we make these lines, we're going to make curved lines that extend from some of these lines that we just made, skipping the ones in the middle. Make them a little thicker. And then we're going to do what is the most interesting part of the Lament configuration. We're going to make these symbols, these markings that are unique, that are different from each other. So on to the third Lament configuration design right here next to the one we just did. We make another square within a square like we just did. Then of course, once we do that, we'll trace it in gold. As I trace here, I want to just clarify that I turned the paper kind of on its side, but that is just for my comfort. Now, once we trace that once we trace the lines, let's make another set of lines that cross over each other. Then we can start painting inside of those. Now, when you paint inside, do what we did before, which was to leave little spaces in between, little random spaces that give the hint that there are markings, that there's some sort of inscription, some sort of detail in there. Then we make these other lines that are curved, kind of like adding two partial circles on each of these corners. Once we do that, we're going to make a square right inside of this space. Make a square. And then here comes the part that is slightly tricky. The inside in the middle is a sun shape or a star shape that we fill with gold marker all around it. It touches it, and once again we leave little random spaces in between. So what we have to do now is replicate each of these designs that we just did, and we have to replicate each of them 2 squares away from the ones we just did. But remember, we're going to keep a cross shape. So now here I am just perfecting the designs, making any lines I need to make straighter, fixing it all around. And then let's make 3 cuts on each side of this cross. Here we're going to make 3 cuts on this side as well, both sides. So let's start with the first cut on this side, then the second and third, and we'll do the same on the opposite side. And now it's time to fold our box. But before we fold it, we can make it easier by kind of using a ruler or something that's straight, that's not going to cut it either, just to make a soft imprint that will make it easier for these lines to fold. Otherwise, trying to get it to fold can be a little bit hard. It could kind of end up uneven. So you want to imprint it somewhat with the ruler. The part of the ruler that's not sharp though, not the metal part. So now it's time to fold our configuration box. Now you want to play around with yours a little bit, close it, see how it closes, see how much you might have to trim off any of those slack squares that we have there. Be careful not to cut too much. You definitely don't want to cut off any of the squares that have designs on them. And you do it until you are comfortable with it. You can cut off some of those slack squares on any side. Then you close it, and you want to use some tape so that you can close it from the inside. So here I have some tape. I want to make sure it's not too much, and I use it to close it from the inside. So now I closed it, and I have a top and a bottom open. The top squares, I want to make some holes in the 3 slack squares, not the one that has the design on it. That one I want to leave alone. The other 3 that are slack, I want to cut through them, make holes that are the same size as each other. And this is obviously so that the light shines through, so that the napkins, or tissues I should say, come through. Once I have those 3 circles, and I'm content with them, then I'm gonna glue them shut. So I glue them one at a time to each other first, before I then close the lid shut on them by adding glue as well. So now, if you have an X-Acto knife, use it to make another cross, another cruciate through the top, but not all the way, sort of in the middle. These lines that are in the shape of a cross. And you fold out little triangles from each of those. This is going to be the opening on our box. And what I'm going to do is add some varnish. This is simply to protect it if I have it near a window or anything. It's not to add gloss. It's not the gloss one. It's the matte one. And here I have my light. You can add any type of light that you have. And the box can also serve alternatively as a hellish tissue dispenser. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that your box is to your liking. Check out etherealartsstudio.com, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button.